But let's live and let's live well. Let's make the best of our lives and let's get as much as we can out of them. That's what I'm here to share with you. Now, I promised you I would define epigenetics for you. So now we get a little sciencey, guys. Sorry about that. Okay. This is a gene chip. Essentially, a gene chip shows you the gene products. So you have this stuff called DNA, and DNA houses your genes, your genetic material. And your genetic material ages not as a result of changes in the genes. It ages as a result of changes in something called epigenetic modifications. So for our purposes tonight, and there are many definitions of epigenetics, but for our purposes tonight, epigenetics is the interface of your environment and your genome. Think about that. Your environment and your genome. And the good news is you control the bulk of your environment. It's what you eat, how you treat your body, whether you meditate, whether you sleep, whether you exercise too much, whether you take good supplements or bad supplements, whether you're toxic, whether you hang out with toxic people. That's all reflected in your environment, and that is what makes you old. You are not a car. Does anybody know who Aubrey de Grey is? Okay. You do, okay. Aubrey de Grey is one of my friends. He's a brilliant guy, but he always uses the old car analogy to explain aging. Car comes out of the showroom, it's brand new, it gets dented, it gets dinged, it loses its alignment, the muffler falls off, and eventually it loses its ability to run. The parts wear out. We don't really wear out in that sense at all. We are dynamic repair organisms. Every single day, every single one of you is losing and gaining, recycling millions of cells. Even those of us who may not be healthy are doing it. They're just not doing it as well as they'd like to. Our repair function is what fails. Our repair function failure is what makes us old. It's not the damage. We can repair incredible amounts of damage. And this middle gene chip, you notice it's got the same numbers. For those of you who are counting, it's 15 by 15, which I think is 225. Those are the same genes in both cases. The colors are different. What that means is some of those genes are expressed more, some of those genes are pulled back and expressed less, and that is what happens with aging. And if you can restore that epigenetic modification, the way your genes are read, you can restore the ability to repair and stay young. So, when you're born, you have a set of genes. When you die, you go out with almost the very same set of genes. Most of you will go out with the same set of genes. What's going to get you is not genetic problems, most of you. And even those of you who may have the BRCA gene for breast cancer or one of those other problems, that's not what's going to get you. It's the epigenetics. As a matter of fact, epigenetics is responsible for 80% of what happens to you. And that means you are in control of 80% of your future. That's a lot of control you have. How you sleep, how you interact with your environment, what supplements you take, whether you follow this prescription or not, impacts immensely on your epigenetics. Now, why are there bees there? Okay, bees turn out to be a perfect illustration of epigenetics in a very simple fashion. Our first epigeneticists were beekeepers. And so when they discovered that when there were baby bees, just after they become out of the larva, if you fed them royal jelly, they all became queen bees. Now, don't run out and buy royal jelly unless you really want to, unless you want to become a queen bee, I guess. But the point is, every single bee there has the ability to become a queen bee if they're fed royal jelly. And guess what? Their genes are all the same. It was the nutrition, the diet. In this case, a supplement, because royal jelly is a supplement, but not for bees. But the point is, you can change just simply by altering what you put into your body, the expression of your genes. A queen bee looks very different than a regular worker bee or a hive bee or one of those other bees, but they have the same genome. Who knows what amazing genetic potential we have that we're about to unlock when we learn how to change our epigenetics. Well, you're going to find out. Okay, here's the prescription. You guys have pencils and papers. I want you to write this down. This is the framework, and we're going to go into real detail. I'm going to explain everything about this, but I want you to write this down now. Number one, nix the 6. Who knows what omega-6 fatty acids are? Okay, some of you do. Omega-6 fatty acids are essential fatty acids, but they're inflammatory. They're necessary. We need them. We just don't need nearly as much as we get in our diets. So step one, reduce the amount of these inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids. Do you all know what inflammation is? We're going to talk about it, just in case you don't, all right? You now know what epigenetics is. We're going to talk about inflammation. But the key concept here is omega-6s are inflammatory. Omega-3s, that's step 2. I want you to consume 6 grams. And I'm going to tell you to use fish oil for lots of reasons, but the big reason is it is the easiest way to achieve high levels of omega-3s without having to sit there and count everything that you eat and be concerned about it. It allows you the freedom of your diet and the ease of your diet, and you handle this with supplementation. It just makes it easier. For those of you who are adamant about not consuming fish oil and want to do this with diet, or for those of you who are really tight with your diet and you can do this, I'll show you how to do it that way as well. Number 3, objectively measure. Test, don't guess. Now, normally I wouldn't stand up here and tell you, get healthy with vitamin C. That's a real title of a book. Get healthy with TMG, trimethylglycine. That's another title of a book. These are single isolated agents with relatively circumscribed effects in the body. Now, vitamin C has a pretty broad base, right? But it just doesn't do enough things in enough key places that it can literally get you healthy. And very few of us are suffering from severe vitamin C defects. However, the same cannot be said about this ratio of omega-6 inflammatory fatty acids to omega-3 anti-inflammatory fatty acids. It is a single agent, a single concentration that you need to focus on, and it will restore health to most of you. And I can tell you right now, and some of you know why, but it's going to be my little secret for those of you who don't. Some of you know why I can say the following. Almost every single person in this room is omega-3 deficient and omega-6 excess. We want you to test that because it is that important. I test every 3 months. I'd like you to do that as well. It is that important in your health because this balance of omega-3s and omega-6s has what we call protein, not protein, but protein effects. It is in your cell membranes. It's in your mitochondrial membranes. It's in your nuclear membranes. It's used to make anti-inflammatory or inflammatory cell signaling inside the cell, outside the cell, circulating throughout your body, affecting your immune system. It affects your ability to contract your muscles and recover from exercise. It affects your neurotransmission in your brain and which neurotransmitters actually are made more so than others, like dopamine and serotonin. Some of you know about these, affecting your mood. It affects the ability to respond to stimulus, how fast you can react. It affects your heart and your heart rate. It's protein. It's all over the place. It's part of your biology as a human being, and you have to accept and embrace it. And if you do that, you'll see near magical things will happen.